What's up, y'all? It is March 6, 2024. Um, Kurt Rambis once said he is in favor of drug testing as long as the drug test is multiple choice. What's up, y'all? We are the HoopStorians. I'm Tony Styles. That is Neek. We are joined by Sports Fluent himself tonight. Y'all want to get into this day in NBA history really quick?
Oh, yes.
Hell yeah.
Okay. March 6, 2001, the Portland Trailblazers retire Clyde Drexler's 22. He played 11 seasons for him. Real quick, one, he retired in 98. Why do you think it took so long for him to get his jersey retired? And two, where do you guys got him ranked in all-time shooting guards?
Let's start with the first one. Why did it take him so long to retire his number?
I don't have the answer. That's why I'm asking you guys. Why do you think it was?
That should have been a no. Someone was asleep at the wheel, because that's a no-brainer right there.
Right. Now, I would have thought we got the first season.
Yeah.
Unless they thought he was coming back, or maybe they were mad that he went and played in Houston. Because people, sometimes some people can be petty. Some people can be petty.
They can. Well, maybe we got Dave. Let's see if Dave knows. I'm gonna ask him. Hey, Dave, how you doing?
What's up, fellas?
What's up? We have a question for you. We're trying to figure this out. Clyde Drexler had his jersey retired on this night 23 years ago for the Trailblazers.
Right.
Why do you think it took them 3 years to get that done after he retired?
I have no idea. I don't know what his No, be honest. I don't know what his relationship was like with Portland at the time. They probably should have done it the year after. The next year he came in, but it probably had to have something to do with the relationship with the owner or the front office, something, because it wasn't the fans. So I don't know.
That was my guess. I said maybe they were angry that he went and played in Houston.
Right. That's probably got to be it. Yeah.
Well, that was this day in NBA history. So I want to thank our guest for coming on tonight, Dave Severns. He was a longtime coach, player development coach, scout. How you been since retiring from the league?
It's been good. I've been busy. Matter of fact, I just got back from Europe late last night. So I've been traveling around the country, travel around the world, do clinics, do consulting, do a lot of camps, and I keep busy. Got a new granddaughter. She keeps me busy. So.
Well, it sounds like you're doing good. I've been seeing your ads lately. What are you working on with camps and all that? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, right now we're developing. We've already developed it. We have an online player development course that's coming up in April. That's a 6-week course, two lessons a week. So that's going to happen in April into May. And I still do stuff with USA Basketball. I'm speaking at a couple of their coaching clinics coming up. And I still work with players from time to time, high school players. In the summer, we'll get some college players in to work out. And then just, because that's what I love to do, just get on the court and help guys out.
Can I steal some free advice from you?
Absolutely.
I coach youth basketball.
God bless you.
And fair enough. And
hey fellas, I'm gonna have a little soup while we talk, but keep going.
Please do.
Yeah, go nuts. I struggle with a couple of guys on every team that I coach, because there's always one, right, or two that are just better than everybody else, and they just over dribble. They miss open guys. They're not passing. How do you get them to stop?
Coach, there's one thing that you control that they want. What is it?
I can't do that because it's fair play. So I have
What do
to
you-
play them
Why?
because that's a league. It's fair play. I got to play them the equal amount.
Oh my
Okay.
God.
Trust
I
me,
would
if
I
I
wouldn't
could
do
have
a fair play league.
that's the easy answer. I'd love to bench them, but I can't.
Yeah. Well, how old are the
See,
players?
it's tough, right? They're 11.
That's a tough one. Yeah. I would play them the minimum amount that you can play them. If it's like they have to play half the game, I'd only play them half the game. I wouldn't play them in a close game down the stretch. So if you feel like it's going to be a close game down at the end of the game, even if they're your best players, put them on the bench, have them watch the other guy. But then you got to explain to them why. They say, look, if you guys
Yeah.
don't change the way you're playing and be more unselfish, this is the way it's going to be. And I would tell, and first of all, you got to talk to the parents, of course. And I would tell the parents, look, if it wasn't for this league mandated rule that you got to play equal times, I wouldn't play them because of their attitude.
Mm. Okay, I like it. Oh,
I mean, you got to be honest with the parents. Parents are one of the biggest problems with youth basketball. There's many problems, but
100%.
they're one of the biggest, and you got to tell them up front. This is the way, I'm playing them because I have to play them, basically. And you got to prepare them for what's coming down the road, because they're gonna eventually get in a team or a program that doesn't mandate playing time.
Well,
Hey, Dave.
that's what I've started with is
Right.
hey, I'm preparing you for as you
Right.
go up each level. The guys are going to be, you're not going to be able to just dribble around everybody. The guys are going to be better defenders. They're going to be bigger, stronger, and if you don't pass to your teammates who are very capable, they're just going to pull you. They're going to sit on the bench and watch them. So I've
That's
started
exactly.
that piece, but I was always wondering, like, I was is there a drill? Can I make them,
Yeah,
points
there
don't
is.
count or something? That sort of stuff.
There is. Have them play cutthroat 4-on-4 half court with rules. All right. The rules are if you dribble more than twice, your team's out. If you got to pass the ball 3 or 4 times before you attempt a shot, and you got to start, teaching them that that's the way we want to play. How many guys are on your team?
12.
Perfect. 3 teams of 4.
3 teams of 4. Yeah. I did like 3 dribble, but it just maybe I just need to do it more because the second we get into a game situation, everything's out the window. Head down, dribble them.
Yeah, you got to prepare them in practice for how you want them to play. But I would start there.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Coach.
Sure.
Well, I was going to say a drill I used to run when I coached, and I coached JV and freshmen, is we would go baseline to baseline, and you'd shoot a 3, and you'd have to rebound your own ball, and you'd sprint to the other corner, and you'd go back and forth, and the quickest person that could make it in 10 wins. So if it took you 11 attempts, 12 attempts, and I told them, you guys cannot shoot if you don't have air in your lungs. So you got to sprint it and keep shooting just back and forth, back and forth. And as progression, they used to take them 30 shots. They'd be sucking wind, and then it would take them down to 10, 12, 15, things like that. And that's always
How old were those kids?
14 to 16.
Yeah.
Okay. I wouldn't do that with younger kids.
No, I can't.
But, yeah, for that age group, that sounds appropriate.
We already have a question for you, Coach, if you don't mind.
Sure.
What was the best overseas player you scouted?
Now, yeah. When I scouted, I did what's called pro personnel scouting. So I scouted guys that are already in the NBA or already in the G League. So the scouts that did European guys in Australia and stuff like that, Africa, those scouts were specific for that area of the country. So I didn't scout. I only scouted the European guys once they got to the NBA.
Oh, there's your answer. So nobody would be the answer.
I guess so. Now,
Right.
I did see Victor when he was playing for that French team last year.
Wimbiana, yeah.
Yeah. So, I did see him before he came over, and everybody in the whole league was there watching him, and it was just so obvious that he was far and away going to be the number one pick. So that was a no brainer. I mean, Stevie Wonder could have seen that one.
Don't
there's
even
a rumor out there.
don't even go down that road, Coach, because there's rumors Stevie Wonder can see. He's been driving. So go down that road.
He's been fooling us all that time.
I know what you mean.
So one of the questions I wanted to ask you is this, because you were on Vinny Del Negro's staff in Chicago, and you were there for the first 2 years of Derrick Rose.
Yeah.
The next year after you left, Derrick Rose went on to win the MVP.
Right.
And the year after that, all his numbers dropped. Is there a possibility that we actually did see Prime Rose, and Prime Rose just happened to be 22 instead of 28?
No.
Or
no,
where would you
it.
see him at?
We didn't see it because of the injuries. Most guys in their prime are 26 to 30. And we just didn't see it with Derrick because he would have been a first ballot Hall of Famer had he not gotten all those injuries. There's no doubt about it. So we did not see the prime Derrick Rose at 22.
If 22 was 25 a game, Derrick Rose, do you think he would have been winning titles up to 30, 10 assists? I mean, where would you see it, like, if we could just put a numbers basis on it?
That's hard. That's hard to speculate on. The teams that Chicago had after we left, those guys you could see it coming. Joakim, Luol, Derrick especially, but you could see them coming. And had he not gotten injured, there's a real good chance they would have won a championship with that group. They brought in Carlos Boozer, who really helped them. But I think that team could have won, especially Derrick's MVP year. They were a phenomenal team. So yeah, I really feel like they would have won a championship somewhere in there had Derrick not gotten hurt.
Neek, you got anything?
Actually, it warms my heart to hear that, being a Rose fan that I am, because I never felt like we got that. So it's good to hear from someone who actually worked with him. So
Yeah,
I definitely appreciate that question and that take on it.
yeah, we never, we could see it coming. I mean, probably, until Ja Morant came around, the most athletic point guard that we've had. And the progress that he made on his shooting was pretty impressive. And it's because he put the work in. But the knee injury really sidetracked him, and he had everything. He had work. And he still does. I mean, I saw him a couple of months ago when Memphis came to play the Clips, and he still has the work ethic and the love of the game, and he's got all that great attitude, team guy, the whole thing. Very quiet guy, but but not for the injuries, we would have been talking about a Hall of Famer.
Do you think he still makes the Hall of Fame? I mean, he'd be the only MVP to not make it.
I don't think so. I think it's going to be really hard for him. I don't. I wish he would, but I don't. I just don't see it. No.
What about you, Fluent? You got anything?
I know you're not full time. Are you? But do you still kind of stay close with the Clippers organization and what's going on there?
Yeah, I do. I still have a lot of friends in the organization. I try to go to as many home games as I can when I'm in LA. Go watch them play and keep in touch with some of the coaches. But yeah, I'm still pretty close to Ty Lue's a great dude, excellent coach, as we all know. But
he's underrated though as a coach. Would you? I feel that he is. Do you feel like he doesn't get his due?
I felt that way for a couple of years ago, but he's starting to. The guys in the league know how much of a good coach he is. USA Basketball put him on as an assistant coach, and they're just not putting anybody on that staff. So that it kind of solidifies him as a coach. But yeah, probably overall a little under. When you talk about when you ask people around the league, who are the top coaches, he's usually in the top 5.
Oh wow. Okay. All right. So that's good.
Yeah.
Everyone who knows me is laughing because I referred to them as the Clippers for the first time, because I typically call them the Buffalo Braves. As a Lakers fan, I have to.
That's right, Buffalo Braves.
But when you said you were in Europe, were you doing camps in Europe, or were you doing a little bit of scouting?
Well, I had 2 things. I did a youth camp, and then I also consult for a pro team in the Norwegian Basketball League of all places. I have really good friends over there in Norway, and I go over every year and spend a couple weeks with the pro team and just consult with them and help them at practice and go to games and stuff. And while I'm there, I'll do some stuff with the kids, with the youth teams.
I wanted
do
to
have a
ask this.
question for you.
Go ahead.
So my question is, do you have a certain level that you prefer dealing with? Like, do you have a preference on working with developing kids or talent
That's a
going
great
into the
question.
league?
That's a great question. And I would say, is there a preference? No. It's easier to work with professional guys. They're probably more motivated, more focused. Anything you can do to help them, they're probably the easiest to work with. And obviously their skill level is so much better. But I enjoy all levels. I enjoy 10-year-olds. I really like working with high school players. I coached in high school for a long time. That was probably my favorite level to coach, was high school. The relationship that you develop with those kids, and I still have them now 30 years later. But so it's different every level, but when you're working with those young kids, you got to be able to tolerate, some immaturity and the frustration of them not having the skills, and, just they can't pay attention for more than like 10 minutes at a time,
10 minutes. I wish.
maybe 5. Yeah. Yeah. But I don't really have a preference, but I enjoy all levels, but NBA guys are probably the easiest, but they're also can be the toughest critic if you don't know what you're doing.
That's fair.
They can see BS a mile away.
So my question is this: on the Clippers team, actually, I have a multi-part question. So it's 3 teams. Those Clipper teams, I think, were just as talented as anybody when you were there. Why do you think they couldn't get over the hump? Is question 1.
Damn, man, you had to bring that up.
I did. Well, I'll tell you what. Whenever I'm watching the NBA, I like to find something. Like, I'm a Suns fan, and the Suns were awful in those years, so I did root for the Clippers out of all the teams because they hadn't won one. Their fan base needed one, so I did root for the Clippers. That's 1. 2. What do you think the best team was out of those teams? 3. What do you think of Doc Rivers' in-game adjustments? Because that's a lot of complaints. And 4, could you please break down Cole Aldrich? Because
I love that guy.
I love him. That's what I'm saying.
guy.
I love him. I love him, and he didn't make it, and I don't understand why. He blocked shots. He set screens. He was fundamentally sound around the basket. He had a baby hook. He was efficient as hell, shooting like 60%, and I don't understand why. So nobody went to him. Nobody played him. So yeah, if you could answer those questions for him, that'd be great.
Let's start with Cole, because we're still friends and we're in touch and everything. And he was one of my favorite guys to work with. Was he, a 30-minute a night starting guy if you had to in a pinch? But he was perfect for a backup. His energy, his shot blocking, his rebounding, he could score in the paint. Great
High
teammate,
motor.
high motor. That was the perfect role for him. Now, could he start and get you through a few games? Yeah. But, if he had to be like 30, 35-minute a night guy every night on as a starter, he wouldn't have been as effective. But I'm glad you brought him up. He's one of my favorite guys ever to work with.
I love him.
Okay, so what was the first question? Something about
Let's
the
go
Clippers?
let's go with, because I think 2016, when they were healthy, that collection of talent was their best chance with Cole.
Well, remind me, was that the team that OKC beat us in the playoffs?
No, that's the team where Blake and Chris Paul got hurt in the first round,
Yeah.
up 2-0, got hurt
Oh
in
yeah,
Portland.
Memphis. Okay. Oh,
No, got hurt
Portland,
in
right,
Portland.
right.
Yeah, got
Portland.
hurt in Portland and then didn't
Right.
make it. First year
Well,
with Paul Pierce on the team.
I think the team 2 years ago, when we got beat by Oklahoma City, we were actually 43 seconds away from going up 3-2, and OKC going home for game 5, and we blew a 7-point lead in 43 seconds. That I still have nightmares about that, but I think that was probably the best team when I was there. But the 2016 team, when Chris hurt his hand, Blake hurt his knee, and we had beaten Portland twice by 20, and then they get hurt and they beat us 4 straight. But that team was probably second. But the team they got this year, to me, is really, really good. Really
Yeah,
good.
it's awesome.
If it's possible to be unbiased on this question, does this team? I know talent wise, because the Clippers have had many teams that talent wise have been capable. But when you actually see this team, the way that they play, the chemistry that they may or may not have, do you see this team having a legitimate shot at dethroning Denver in the West and going to the NBA Finals?
Oh, for sure. And I'm not just saying that because I'm biased, but yeah, I definitely do. And there's a couple reasons. With the possible exception of Denver and Jokic, every series that they go into, they're going to have the best player on the floor in Kawhi.
Yeah, agree.
You saw what he did tonight and how he brought him back to win in Houston.
You don't know. I'm in Toronto, so we got to see Kawhi up close and personal, what he can do when he's on his game. So we're good. But that's why I was asked the question as unbiased as possible, because it's those it's those little things. It's the 10th guy that matters sometimes more than the first guy. And if they're not all playing their roles and get a couple lucky bounces, that it could be that is the difference in making the finals. So I'm curious. So they got the best player with the exception of Jokic.
And then they have terrific talent. I mean, and they're healthy. And you mentioned the 10 guys. Really, they only need 8. Hopefully Russell will come back from the hand thing, and then him and Norman Powell and Daniel Tice off the bench, and that'll probably be about it if everybody's healthy. But I really, I've said this since the beginning of the season. I think it's going to be Boston and the Clippers in the finals. And it's going to be a toss-up. It's going to be hopefully get there, and it could be a great series. The thing that concerns me about the Clippers is they do get lackadaisical sometimes, and Paul can be inconsistent at times. Shot selection, turning the ball over. But if they can clean up those things, they're definitely talented enough, and the chemistry's pretty good. I was skeptical about James going there. I mean, I think they had to do it because they didn't give up a whole lot to do it, to be honest with you. And I think it was a good roll of the dice, but I really didn't. I was skeptical on how it was going to work out, but it's been great for them. And, their 4 best players are all from LA, and they love being there and they love playing together.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I was very critical of the move of James going there. And then the initials, the start, I looked like I was brilliant. I don't look so smart. I don't look so smart anymore, but that I asked the question of chemistry, because it's those things that you don't see, but when you're behind the scenes, sometimes you see a little bit of that stuff for the good or the bad. So interesting that's good that they're obviously gelling, because that they need that.
They're good. I mean, it's not going to be easy.
No, okay? It's never easy.
Denver and Phoenix has got their starting 5 is really, really good. I'm just concerned about their bench a little bit. And Denver's the champ until you knock them off. And it's amazing because if you look at the way things are now, Golden State and the Lakers could be like the 7-8 seeds. You want to play them the first round?
Oh, I've said if I'm Minnesota or OKC, I believe as it stands today, as much as I feel confident, I don't want to play those 2 teams, because Steph and LeBron can both still take over a series, 4 games. It doesn't take much.
To be honest with you, if that ends up being the case, I could see the Lakers and the Warriors both beating them and winning the first round games.
This is so interesting about this year, and I know, sorry, Tony, I know you probably want to go down a different path, but it's interesting because I think the Lakers and Golden State definitely have a shot against Minnesota and OKC. And in the East, what you're seeing is you might have Indiana and Miami playing the top 2 seeds in Milwaukee and Boston. Now, I know Boston looks great, but we know what, them against Miami, if that's the first round, that's going to be a tough series. And we know what Indiana's done with the Bucks. Could you imagine 7 and 8 seeds on both sides? It might be the best 1-8 2-7 series we've seen ever, ever on both sides.
And the thing is, as I'm sure you guys know, Miami's starting to crank it up.
Oh yeah.
They're starting to play much
Yeah.
better. And I'd be honest with you, if Tyler Hero continues to be out, they're going to keep playing better. I don't think they're as good with him.
Oh really?
Oh no,
Do you
no,
think
he
the lack
dribbles.
of defense doesn't make up for the offense, or do you think the
No,
offense is too predicated on others?
yeah. To me, he dribbles around too much. He takes bad shots. He doesn't guard. I mean, the proof is in what happened last year in the playoffs when he wasn't playing. Look how well they played.
Mm. And it's
That's
funny
That's
because a
my
lot of
personal
people,
opinion.
a lot of people said him being out is what cost them the NBA final, but him being out might have what got them to the NBA final.
That's kind of what I think, but what do I
Interesting.
know?
Well, this is my question.
More than most. Sorry, go ahead, so.
Well, where I'm concerned with the Clippers, and I wanted to ask you too, what do you think of Doc Rivers' in-game adjustments? Because that's always been the
Right.
knock on him. And then, but
Yeah.
also too, is James Harden, no matter if he's the first option, the second option, the third option, he shoots 44% and shoots under 50% from two. So is that James Harden is what elevated them to title contenders? Do you think his lack of efficiency still in those regards, it seems like whether he takes 11 shots or 25 shots, he still is the same player? Because normally when you go to a team, your shots go down, your efficiency goes up.
I think his playmaking and his ability in the pick and roll to make the right read and everything. I still think that's at an elite level. I really do. And if the court's open for him because Paul and Kawhi, and if they have Norman Powell out there who can really shoot, I think that's the thing that has really helped them. The shooting percentages are going to come and they're going to go. It's going to be up and down, but it's the playmaking and his ability to get Paul and Kawhi some pretty easy shots and get Zoo on the roll. I think that's what sets him apart. Now, the Doc thing, I think that stuff is all overrated. In-game adjustments and all that stuff. Yeah, obviously I was with him for 3 years, and I saw, firsthand how hard he works and the importance that he puts on ATOs, special situations, in-game adjustments. So I think the criticism's unfair. Um, but on the other side of it, you can look at it and say, well, look how many 3-1 leads that he's lost. So that's fair. But I think the in-game adjustment stuff, and I think that's overrated because I've seen him operate in those areas. I mean, we go back to the OKC game that I talked about. Doc didn't turn the ball over.
Well, I was going to say that's on Chris Paul. Chris Paul
Yeah, I mean,
uncharacteristically just started turning it over.
Yeah, Doc didn't foul the guy at the end of the game, and Doc, when we were up three, I think it was 3-2 in Houston and 16 in the fourth quarter. Defensively, we probably could have done some different things against Brewer and Josh Smith. I still see those threes in my nightmares, But overall, I say that stuff's overrated, and I don't agree with it. And Doc's an excellent coach. His ability to connect with his player relationship stuff and managing the team and having a great feel for the team. When to practice, when not to practice. When to take the advice of the leaders of the team and things like that is really, really good. He has a great feel for the pulse of the team.
Neek, you got anything?
So I was looking at videos of offenses and everything like that. Have you seen from the things that you've been teaching and the things that you've shown, have you seen what's the word I want to, have you seen an offense that seems to be more effective or the most effective?
So, for example, as a triangle offense, a Princeton offense, is there
Okay. I understand your question. This may sound like a simple answer, but it all depends on your personnel.
Mm-hmm.
It really does. I mean, let's take Sacramento for example. Last year they were an historic offensive team, and a lot of that is the ability of Sabonis to be a facilitator at the high post and in the middle of the court. So the personnel and his ability to do that really helped their offense. Kobe in the triangle, and Michael in the triangle, they got a lot of mid post ups for those two guys. And they also had, with Gasol and Bynum and Shaq, those guys, they also had very good inside post players. To me, it's all personnel based. I really enjoy a couple of teams this year and last year. I really enjoy watching Indiana this year. I think their offense is the second highest historically ranked offense behind Boston this year. And then last year, Sacramento's their offense. And then the Warriors before that. I think their offense that they run is really fit well with their personnel, those guys. So those are the sums that but to say there's one system, it's personnel based, If I got Shaq in his prime,
yeah,
my system's going to be pretty easy.
Well, I was gonna say, you say it's a simple answer by saying it's personnel, but it's the most commonly overlooked, right? Because we've seen the triangle offense, and even though it was built, supposedly it was built for a center, we saw the times that it worked the best is when you had super elite shooting guards. Now, granted, Kobe had Shaq for some of that time, but they tried it some other places. It didn't work because it was so complex. That you guys didn't get it.
Yeah, you go, example, I think it was Kurt Rambis who coached in Minnesota. Is that right? Minnesota?
Yeah, he coached for Minnesota.
Yeah, he took the triangle offense with them, and they had Al Jefferson, who's a nice low post player, but they didn't have the guards and the stuff like that to be able to run it. So
offense
it's
is
personnel based.
Or when you can just kick it out to Kobe or Jordan with 3 seconds left and say, do something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a pretty good offense.
A little twist on Neek's question. So what offense did you enjoy running the most? I get it, it's based on personnel, but what is the one that you're like, you know what, if I had the right people, I would do this all day because it's just either fun, it's effective.
Yeah.
I just enjoy it. What's your favorite?
I like what Sacramento does now, and what Indiana does in Golden State. Their ball movement, their cutting, their ability to really read well when guys switch, and the ability to cut and back cut and the constant movement. I think that's what I enjoy the most. Obviously, everybody's going to throw some pick and roll in there, but I just think those teams, using the high post guy as a facilitator when they have splits, using the low post guy like Draymond, and then running all those splits and those gaggles that Golden State runs. I think that's what I enjoy the most. I think, and I'd be honest with you, I think fans enjoy that the most, with the ball movement and the cutting and the constant player movement.
Yeah, it's as effective as ISO ball is. It is boring as hell to watch.
Yeah, and getting back to the Clippers, sometimes I think they get in trouble with, and Ty would be the first to admit this. They get in trouble sometimes where it's too much isolation and the ball does, because those two guys are such elite one-on-one players.
Well, I want to branch off that. The Celtics, to me, they look like the best team in the league right now, and I think the records, the number, and all that backs it up. To me, they are the best team I think I've ever seen through 3 quarters, and then in the fourth quarter, that's all of a sudden the ball sticks. We run isolation. Yeah. We're going side to side ball movement, and now we're doing isolation plays, and we've completely forgot what we've run. And take a look at like the Cleveland game last year. And to me, that is the only hope I see of teams beating them in the playoffs, is their poor fourth quarter performance.
Cleveland game last night,
or a couple nights.
Cleveland game last night.
Last night. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Are you seeing the same things?
Yeah, I do. And they're going to need, in my opinion, they need more close games. What's there, like 20 games left? They're going to need more close games like last night to be able to clean those things up. Because if you're in a close game and all you do is go ISO with Tatum and Brown, and like you said, that's not what got them there.
And if they have an off night,
yeah, because they're not going to be able to get away with that against a good defensive team like Milwaukee or the Knicks or Miami. But in saying that, I still think they have the best starting five in the league. Their 3-point shooting when they get rolling is elite. But that ISO ball down the stretch in a close game with Jason and Brown, I think they got to clean that up and find something maybe a little different to go to, because that you can get in trouble when you do that. And most teams, they kind of tend to do that if you watch them, right?
Mhm.
Let's,
Why
let's
do they
get the
do
ball to
that?
our best player and isolate them, and you know.
And I'm asking you, why do teams revert back to doing that? I don't understand. You have 3/4 of proof we're killing you,
And
and we're doing ball movement, and that's what opened up this league. That's what the Warriors. Before Steve Kerr got there, the Warriors were the least passing team in the league. They ran the numbers. That's when they took the ball out of Steph's hands so much, because he was getting 8, assists a game. Then it went down to 5, because then they started. Well, let's do 5-on-5 passing instead of one guy making most passes. And we saw they went from a first round exit to, a, depending on how you want to define it, a dynasty.
yeah, and the funny thing is, the first round exit. The year before Kerr came, we played them in that 7-game series, and
You know what's funny about that? I actually bet Neek on
what?
that series that the Clippers would beat them. So you guys
Yeah.
won me some money.
Well, that was the Donald Sterling series.
Yes.
Okay, we were in the midst of all that craziness during that
Oh,
series,
yeah.
but you could see Golden State coming. I remember telling somebody after that series, I said, these guys are coming, and they're going to be one of the best teams in the league next year. And this was before Kerr came, and they made the coaching change. But you could just see those guys coming, and man, did they come?
I've seen it against the Spurs. Them
Yeah, you
series,
could see it,
them
right?
going up against the Spurs. I seen it. It was
Yeah,
it felt as though just watching it, like they had a certain confidence where it was like, we can do this.
yeah,
And
and
they were missing something, maybe maturity. I don't know,
yeah,
experience.
experience,
Maybe both.
experience is
But
that's the huge thing, and that's probably why OKC they're gonna be really good for the next 10 years. But like right now and next year, maybe the lack of experience in the playoff is probably going to get them. That's just kind of my opinion. Whether it's the first round, second round, or whatever, but they're coming too. They're very similar to what Golden State was in 2014.
As
You
long
could
as
just
long as they can keep it together, because OKC, they'll unfortunately some of those players might look for greener pastures, and unfortunately we see that. But it's interesting what you said, because so few people remember. Not very often is there a team that just all of a sudden is great. They have to pay,
yeah,
get,
you have
get
to.
you have to get that experience together as a team, take some losses, and very rare is that Magic comes in and you win that first year,
Yeah,
right?
Mhm.
Most
it's
teams
it's
have
it's
to
tough. I
go
mean,
over some hump.
Miami, it took Miami a year when
Even
LeBron showed up.
exactly, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
hey, let me tell
Uh,
you guys, it's not easy. It's not easy to win in that league. I mean, it's hard. People think, oh, it's easy. They got all this talent and they play. It's hard, man.
Hey,
You're dealing with
there's
you're
one
dealing
winner and
with
29 losers.
you're dealing with guys, you know, with big egos, and rightly so. If they didn't have those egos, they wouldn't be where they are.
Right.
Guys with unbelievable confidence in themselves and their game.
Mhm.
So managing all that on top of the X's and O's and dealing with the owner and all that stuff, and it's hard, man. It's hard to win in this league.
I think everyone forgets every single one of those players
I have a
typically.
question for you.
Sure. Did I lose you guys?
No, I
Okay.
No,
think
what I was going to
Tony,
say is this.
Tony
No,
froze
no,
up
no,
a
we're
bit.
right
He's
here. Uh,
lagging.
what I wanted to ask was this. Yeah. So what I wanted to ask is this: is can you try to, as best as you can, quantify what experience means? Like, for example, instead of having 4 turnovers, we're only going to have 2 turnovers. Instead of this play, we're going to make that play, because it's the intangibles that make a lot, but there's no way to really quantify them. So could you try to give us some
I
examples of the
I
difference
don't think
between an
I,
experience versus a non?
I don't think you can quantify it. I think that's hard to do. But
Hmm.
what I do see is how they handle close games down the stretch, um, because they've been there before. I mean, that's so important. How your star players play. in a big game down the stretch. I know Shea is a great player, and he's going to be one of the best players the next 10 years. But he hasn't been in those situations yet. How does he handle, the last 3 minutes of a 1-point game in the playoffs on the road? So it's hard to quantify with, going from 4 to 2, like you mentioned. But what you can see is that there's nothing that can replace the experience of being in those moments.
I
You
always
have to go through those.
I was related to, like, when you talk about football players, right? You typically say, like, a quarterback at some point the game starts to slow down.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's similar, right? You because now you've seen it before, so it doesn't seem as chaotic because you're like, oh, I've seen this before. I've been blitzed on this double team before. I get it, and I think that's kind of how I see it, is that, Shea's not going to get it that first time, but the next time around he'd be like, okay, I know what to expect. I know that the adrenaline starts pumping and things seem to go faster. I'm going to stay calm and slow it down. And when you can do that, and then to Tony's point, that's when you do have less turnovers, less whatever.
Yeah, right. I think that's a good analogy with that, with the football thing.
Another thing I wanted to ask you is this. We see a lot of people, they treat players' opinion like gospel. Well, he played in the NBA and you didn't, and all that. And I'm not saying that they can't, and I'm not saying that they can't run X's and O's or whatever, but we see players all the time, especially superstar players, be terrible assessments of judgment of talent. For example, Kawhi would rather had Paul George than SGA. Michael Jordan was terrible in the front office. Magic was a terrible head coach. We just see players like that do all that all the time. Why do you think players, so many great players, have bad assessing talents, other players' talent, and what that means as far as chemistry and fit and things like that?
Because it was so easy for them that they have a hard time, thinking why isn't it easy for those guys?
If
Does that
I'm,
make and let me.
Yeah.
There was one ex-player that I thought, and he still evaluates players for the draft, and I think he was a really good evaluator of talent. And that was Larry Bird.
Yeah, Larry's probably
and the best of all time is Jerry West.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's with the Clips now as a consultant, and I've been able to spend time around him the last few years, but overall, fair point about Michael, about the Bobcats and then the Hornets. Fair point.
Well, I always use the Wayne Gretzky thing. Wayne Gretzky tried to coach your Phoenix Coyotes, and they asked him, like, why? Someone in Canada, they asked him bluntly, why he's such a terrible coach, and he said, well, because I tell the players we'll do this, and they go, I don't know how. And they said, how did you do it, Wayne? And he goes, I don't know, I just did it.
Yeah.
Well, you can't coach by saying I just did it. He just expected them to know, do this. So
and the other thing about superstar players that coached, I think the frustration level that they get to, becomes a point of, I just don't want to do this anymore. This is hard.
It's harder than it looks when you're playing.
Yeah, it's hard. That's why I look at some of the best coaches in the league. A lot of them are point guards that weren't superstar players. Rick Carlisle, Doc. Spoelstra was a college point guard. There's so many ex-point guards that Scott Skiles, Vinny.
Mark Jackson was a good coach when he was a point guard.
Yeah, those guys weren't superstar players. They were grinders, man, and they know how hard it is, and they're used to the grind. Those type of Ime Udoka, those type of guys. Willie Green, who was one of my favorites when we had him with the Clips. Those are the guys that seem to be the ex-players that really make good head coaches. And I'm sure I'm missing some guys on that list.
Sure.
I think eventually Chauncey will be a
Casey Jones.
Coach. Yeah, Casey Jones. There you go. Steve Kerr.
I feel like that would make sense.
Jason Kidd, you could probably say Jason Kidd was a superstar, but
yeah. And
we got a question for you.
By the way, Dallas, I'm not buying them.
Oh,
and I think Jay Kids is great, and I love their guys, but I'm not buying them.
Can I tell you why I'm not buying them? I am a
You're-
firm believer on
you're
this.
the only person other than me. I thought you were the only one other than me that isn't buying them. Go ahead.
No, I'm a firm believer on this. Okay, Kyrie Irving's worst skill set is passing, and I swear to God that's the truth. And you cannot be a point guard and your worst skill is passing. That's like being a quarterback and your worst skill set is throwing. LeBron went up to him one time, said, "We can't have you playing 36 minutes a game and getting this 0 assists. That just
Well,
can't happen."
the good thing is on that team you really didn't have to pass. The
Well,
other guys taking care of all that.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I want to, every time I see a team doing well, I want to take a good close look at them. So they were in town last week, and I went and took a nice. They're in Toronto, face the Raptors, so I went and took a nice close look at them. And the best way I can describe what I saw that night, so I'm not saying that's indicative of every night, but it's like if you've ever played like at like LA Fitness or like a YMCA where there's one guy on either team that is just they're the best players on each one of their teams, and they just go at each other one-on-one, and the other four guys are just kind of filling in space. I felt like Kyrie came into the game and he was going 1-on-5 with the team he was playing. Luka passes more, but it was still like clearly it was Luka. It was like they were running two separate ships down.
Right.
It was, and I'm like, that's not going to work in the playoffs because you can't do that you can do it against a team like Toronto. No offense to my Raptor fans that are watching. I don't think you can do that in the playoffs though.
I think it's going to be, now a couple years ago, they went to the conference finals. I understand that, but this is a different team. I think it's going to be really hard for them. I really do. One of you guys had a question?
No. Well, somebody from the comments has a question, and this kind of goes into a question I had. So just in the last, 15 years, what are the major, differences you see as far as coaching players and the evolution of the game? And it goes into this question: how much weightlifting is pushed for NBA players? Because I remember in the
Tons.
90s, Jordan was the
Tons.
only one doing game day lifting,
Right.
and things like that. Just where's the evolution gone in the last, 15 years?
Well, let's start with the weightlifting.
Mhm.
The guys are pretty much fanatic about most guys. It's 4 or 5 days a week. It's after the game. It's before the game. Every team has 2 or 3 strength coaches. So that has gone to another level, the strength and conditioning programs. The proof is in the pudding. Look at Steph Curry's body compared to where he was as that skinny kid coming out of Davidson. Look at Giannis.
Yeah.
And it's most guys. Yeah, weightlifting is very prevalent. It's very important in the league. And the thing, and you asked a question about the 15-year thing. The number one thing that has changed is the ability for guys to shoot from range. I mean, the depth that these guys can shoot now is unbelievable. And it's not just NBA guys. I mean, I see it with high school kids, with college kids, their ability to shoot deep and shoot off the dribble deep is something that's really, really improved, in the last 15 years. And then obviously, the 3-point shooting and the attempts have gone up every year for the last 10 years. So that's become, a huge part of the game.
Right.
Probably the biggest change that we've seen. So I think those two things, and the players they're so skilled these days. It's unbelievable how good how skilled these guys are.
You brought up Jerry West a
Yeah.
little bit ago, and I gotta ask a question again. I'm a Lakers fan, so I'm admittedly biased. I have been my whole life.
Right.
My son, in fact, I swear I did not influence him, has Jerry West at number 10 all time. No influence from me at all.
Right. Well,
Oh.
I can't argue with him.
So that's what I was going to ask you. So two questions about Jerry. How good was he as a player? Because I think we underrate because of the time that he played in. And then we hear a lot of rumors of him being a little cold. Maybe if you've watched some of those, the documentaries or faux documentaries, the Showtime, I think.
That was nah.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but I want to hear it directly from someone who's had the opportunity to spend some time with him. So
he's not cold. You know what he is?
Yeah,
he's competitive.
Okay.
I mean, a guy, he's competitive. He wants to win, and he still loves the game. He watches the games all the time. He's competitive. He wants to win, but cold, nah. Competitive, yeah.
All right. So it's
And
just
as a player,
competitiveness that people sometimes take as rough around the edges type of thing.
yeah, no, not at all. And great sense of humor. Great.
Okay.
Um,
I'm glad to hear that. It's good.
tremendous.
Hey,
Now,
it sounds
as a
like Kobe,
player,
kind of like
he
how
was one of
people
the first.
thought.
You brought up the
I'm sorry.
playing thing. You know, I'm a lot older than you guys, since he was one of the first players, you know, that I really watched. You know, in the late '60s and early '70s. You know, as I started watching the NBA, he was one of the first guys that I really started to watch. Walt Frazier, uh, you know, and then Maravich and those guys. So he was a great, great, great player. And probably the guy on his team that doesn't get enough credit for being a great player was Elgin Baylor. He
Oh
was
yeah.
just as good.
You mean 38 and 20 a game, Elgin Baylor?
Yeah, that guy.
That guy.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I want to bring that up because that's kind of the point of that I told Fluent over there that I wanted to do this because I am a firm believer. I separate things between great and best. Okay, so the greatest players of all time, it's what they did for the game, what they accomplished, all that. I don't care if Bob Cousy can't go between his legs and do all that. I think Ish Smith would absolutely wreck Bob Cousy in a one-on-one game. So Ish Smith has an argument for being a better player, but Bob Cousy is by far a greater player. He's an MVP,
Well,
he's a champion, he's an all-time. And what I'm trying to say is greatness translate. What do you say to these people now that go, well, they played against plumbers and there was only 8 teams in the league, so it doesn't count? Because my example, for example, is Bob Pettit. Bob Pettit is awesome. I don't care what anybody says, and
hey,
he's one of the highest ranked.
Speaking of Bob Pettit, I got a Bob Pettit story. So this October, it went down to LSU to watch practice for a couple of days and watch a football game. And Bob Pettit, at 90 or whatever he is, still comes to LSU practices and hangs around. He's still really involved in the game. But, and I think JJ regrets that plumbers and firemen's comment. I really do. But what Cousy and those guys, they were impactful.
Yeah.
So,
It's so tough when you're comparing eras, right? Because
you
it's
can't do that. Yeah,
I always give this analogy. I go, if you throw me back into Microsoft 40 years ago, I'm going to look like a genius if I go back with all the knowledge I have today. So it's impossible to do that. It's funny because when JJ did that,
you could have been Steve Ballmer before Steve Ballmer.
Absolutely. Now I wish I had a time machine because he's a little bit richer than I am.
You could have been coach's boss then.
Yeah.
There we go. Perfect. But no, that's my only complaint with that is you got to look at it for what it was, because it's easy to look back and say, well, these guys today are so much more skilled. Well, yeah, guess how they learned that skill, right? By watching what each other generation did before them.
And guys, and it's like that in every sport, the major sports.
Yeah.
It really is. And 20 years from now, they're going to be doing stuff that we couldn't imagine right now.
Yeah, when that 4-point line comes out.
God, I hope that doesn't happen.
Do you think they need to widen the court if there's a 4-point line? Because I mean, how do you do it on the baseline?
No, they won't. They won't put in a 4-point line, and they won't widen the court. No.
If
they're not raising the basket to 12 feet. They're not doing any of that stuff.
If it wasn't for the money that they would lose in those courtside seats, do you think it would make sense to make the court a little bit bigger, since the guys are even though they're not, but everyone wants to say they're bigger, faster, stronger?
No, I don't think so. Okay. Doesn't make sense to me. But I'm an old school guy. I think the game is in a great place. I don't think we need to make crazy changes like that.
What do you think about the too much offense argument that they're going on with right now? Because like you said, Sacramento, and we just brought this up, Sacramento had 118.6 per 100 possessions, all-time record last year. 5 teams are beating them. 7 teams are within a point of surpassing them. So do you think we have too much offense right now? Do you think that's a rule that might need to be changed?
No, and we don't, because when the playoffs start, that stuff goes away for the most part. I think it really does. If you look at the points per possession and the offensive ratings and stuff, that goes away. I'm watching the Warriors right now. They're just kicking Milwaukee's butt.
I see it. Milwaukee trying to come back, though.
To answer your question, I love the offense now. The fans like it. Sometimes I think teams could get carried away with the 3-point shot. Boston
Yep.
being one of them. We see so many bad 3-pointers, in my opinion. But I love the offense stuff, the way it goes now, the way teams are playing. But when the playoffs start, for the most part, that stuff goes away.
Do you think that teams now, because that's another argument, especially from people that are old school, that players don't have pride anymore. They don't have the competitive spirit anymore. They're more concerned about the bag and the money and the brand. Do you think there is a difference since you worked with players, or do you think they're just because the other argument is they take better care of their bodies now? They lift weights and better now. Charles Barkley pregame meal was 2 Big Macs. Now they have nutritionists. Now they have sleep schedules. Now they have a weightlifting.
I don't think that's changed for Barkley, by the way.
No.
It's probably worse.
Everything you said is so true. All the advantages that the players have now, and no, I still think they're as competitive as they were. I really do. But you mentioned the branding and the social media. To some players that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
Some players could care less about it.
Jokic.
He could care less about that stuff. He doesn't care.
He just wants to go home and ride some horses.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
The league has, hinted at expansion.
It's going to happen.
Oh, it's going to happen.
Oh,
Seattle and Vegas.
I know it's going to happen.
Now, I can say that I don't know if it will be expanded to 32 or if they'll keep it in 30 and 2 teams are going to move to Vegas and Seattle. I could see either one of those happening. I'm not sure which way the league wants to go, but Seattle and Vegas are getting a team.
Oh yeah, and Seattle never should have lost their team. But my question about expansion was how much do you feel, if at all, do you feel expansion dilutes the league?
Yes. I mean, if you go to 32 teams, it dilutes. Now I'm all for it because now there's 30 more jobs created for guys, players, but the talent, it does get diluted a little bit for sure.
Okay.
Nick, you got anything?
Well, one last question, and I think you guys almost sort of answered it, but just out of curiosity, it's directed towards everyone, really. So, with all of these players starting to develop shots, do you guys see a league moving forward where the shooters are no longer the guards? The shooters are now the powers, the centers, and everything like that. And what would that do for the league? As far not the league, what do you think that would do for people's numbers moving forward if we're seeing centers and the bigger players out there scoring from beyond the arc?
Well, we're there now. We're there now. Every team right now is looking for a big that can shoot to open the court. And most teams have one. And it might have really started with the transformation that Brook Lopez made from a low post dominant center with the nets, throw it into him, to what he is now. That might have started the transformation. And now we see like every team's probably got a, they call it a stretch 4, stretch 5, but every team's got one of those guys. I mean, I'm watching the Bucks right now, Bobby Portis, almost every team has one of those guys.
Speaking of that, in Seattle was the first team I really saw that when they ran Sam Perkins at the 5, and he stretched the floor for him in the mid-90s, early to mid-90s, and that's when I really first saw it being prevalent. Yeah, big smooth, big sleepy.
Yeah, sleepy.
The point though, like just quickly on that, it's already happening, and Nick, to kind of add to what he was saying, there's a friend of ours, Zach Edey, who plays for Purdue.
Great, yeah.
And they talked about him, he wanted to come out last year, and they're like, you can't shoot far enough. You need to go back to college, because he could do everything else you want from a 7'4" big, but everybody wants shooting. So I think his draft projection was like 2nd round, I think, last year, because they want everybody to shoot. Now, whether that's good or a bad thing, we can probably discuss, but I think they might be missing out on some players, because I think you can still win. What you don't have everybody who can shoot. You still need rebounding. You still need defense. You still need all those other things.
Protection. Yeah.
Giannis got an argument for best player in the world.
Speaking of Zach, Edie, I don't think that whoever drafts him, and he's going to get drafted, and he's probably going to be the player of the year. I don't think that they're going to be as concerned about developing his shot as much as, trying to get him to be a little more agile, get him to move better.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a low post guy.
Oh,
maybe a high post facilitator.
For sure.
I don't see him as being, hey, he's got to be a 3-point shooter like Victor is. I don't see that happening with him.
Yeah,
But-
no, I agree. But that was the knock last year was, he's not gonna go in the first round because he's not this big shooter. And I said,
I don't know. I don't know, because I wasn't in the draft room, last year listening to college guys talk about players. So I don't know what they thought.
Fair.
And with with the Clippers, one of their top scouts' son is a starter at Purdue.
Oh, okay.
So him and I have a lot of conversations about Zach and the Purdue team and all that. So
I have one last question, and then I don't know if you got Fluent one last question as well. But my last question is this: we were talking about this on the podcast a couple weeks ago, contrasting of styles, and these players overlapped a lot. They were at the end of the career; other players were at the beginning. If the 04 Pistons played the 17 Warriors, you got one team just killing it offensively, another team just killing it defensively. Who would you think would win in that contrasting of styles?
Golden State
Can you tell us why?
offense.
So you're an offensive coach?
I think most coaches are. When you talk, I had this discussion with the coach today. And you got to be able to score. I mean, offense wins. I really believe that. So to answer your questions, I think Golden State beats them.
You want to hear a great stat, Dave?
Sure.
The team that scores the most points wins 100% of the games.
There you go.
Well, I said this. Nobody's ever said this, and I always say this: a dominant scorer is what wins. Out of the last 45 years, basically with the 3-point line, only one team, and that's the Pistons, won without a guy who didn't average 25 points a game at some point in his career.
Hey, you got this. You're a numbers guy, man. You ought to.
I am.
He is a numbers guy.
That's how I got the show.
Oh,
all right,
that's a great stat. Yeah.
I know you got to go, so I'm going to ask my last question.
I'm just sitting there watching games.
Oh, okay. So LeBron obviously just surpassed 40,000 points.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
He's pretty good. He's pretty good. I'm older than I look. So when Kareem became the all-time leading scorer, we thought no one was ever going to break that record. And now, of course, everyone's saying now LeBron might play another 5 years, so who knows what he's going to end up with. But right now, everyone's saying, hey, no one's ever going to pass LeBron.
I don't. Maybe that person hasn't been born yet, but I don't think you can say that and really be honest with yourself, because it's probably going to happen at some point.
That frame of thought is really what sparked me to ask that question about the bigs, because what I was imagining is like 7-foot guys with jumpers who are also in the paint and everything like that. What do you think these type of people will be averaging if they're shooting 40% from the three, and then they're also 50%
posting up, going to the foul line? Yeah,
we're seeing it with Embiid, 36.
Let's say Victor plays 20 years without a major injury. Where he misses 2 years. Can we honestly sit here and say that he doesn't have a chance to break that record? I don't think we can.
Exactly.
Well, and that was why I asked the question, because I always get into that conversation where I say, look, that person's not probably born yet, because like I said, I remember Kareem breaking the record and I saying no one's going to break it, and lo and behold, 38 years later, it's gone. And with the way that offenses are going and 3-point shooting, and I joke, but I'm not necessarily entirely joking when I say there probably is going to be a 4-point line. As much as we all probably hate that idea, that's going to change, right? That's going to change the game too.
And speaking of numbers and all that stuff, the one that I don't think will ever be broken is the 100-point game.
Oh, I don't believe that happened.
Oh, it happened. Come on, man.
Coach, I just want to tell you, as a guy that does numbers, and if you really want to see, I can show you how obsessive compulsive I am with this.
Oh.
The most unbreakable record of all time is Wilt Chamberlain's all-time rebounding record. The guy's got more rebounds than Bird's got points, Wade's got points, Curry's got points, Barkley's got points. That is the most unbreakable record by far.
Yeah, and he went 50 and 25 for a season
He did.
and played 48.1 minutes per game.
I think it was actually 40. It was 48.5. It was
48.
Okay, there's the number guy. You got me.
Yeah, 48.5. But yeah, that's great. It was against plumbers though.
It was against plumbers, so it doesn't count.
Yeah, Nate Thurman was a plumber.
Nate Thurman,
Walt Bellamy was a plumber. Bill Russell.
Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah.
Wes Unseld. Another great rebounder. Yeah. Well, Coach, we're over time, and we want to thank you for having Fluent. You got anything else you want to say real quick?
No, I was just going to say, I don't know if you all know this, but there actually was one plumber, whoever actually did play in the NBA, played for one game.
I do know that.
Norm Glicky played one game, and he was the national player. So there was one.
Right. Coach, where can we find you at?
Yeah.
Where can we find you at, Coach? If people want to get on your coaching program or anything like that, where can they find you at? How can they get involved with you?
I have a coaching website that I have like 45 years of stuff on there to really try to help coaches, and it's all free. And it's gymratbasketball.com, and it's JYMRATT basketball.com.
Aren't you on YouTube with that?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I have a lot of videos that are on YouTube. Yeah, my gym. I do have a link from my coaching stuff on YouTube. Yeah, and then the player development course that starts in April the company's called Elevator, ELVTR. They're the company that does all those. And then I don't do anything on Twitter except for the Hoop of the Day.
What is the Hoop of the Day?
Every morning, if you go to my Twitter, you'll find somewhere in the world there'll be a picture of a hoop it'll say Hoop of the Day from
Nice.
wherever it was. Like today was where was today's? Somewhere in Mexico, I think, Oaxaca, Mexico, or something. But every morning, and I have people send them to me. I take them, but that's my contribution to social media, the Hoop of the Day.
Well, I'm gonna send you a hoop.
Yeah, send it to me.
Maybe it'll make Hoop of the Day. But
if you send it to me, and make sure you put your name so you get credit for it.
Absolutely. And what I'm also going to do is put gymratbasketball.com right at the top of the description. So anyone who's watching this after the live.
Oh, good. Yeah, JYMRATT.
JYMRATT basketball.com. All right. I'll make sure I got that right.
Okay.
Yeah, Coach. So yeah, we would love to have you on again. I got a million questions I didn't even get to, so anytime you want to come back on, you are more than welcome to come back on. Next time you talk to Cole, tell him he's welcome on to. I love him as a player. I don't think
he'd probably come on. He'd probably come on.
Well, let's text afterwards. Please give him my info. Yeah, I'd love to have him on and shoot the shit with him.
He's a great dude.
Because I forgot to ask Coach about another guy who has a show on this network, Paul McKeskey. I forgot to ask you about that.
Mo, I know Mo. We go way back.
Coach Mo?
Yes, sir.
His show We Got Game is on here every Monday night with Ricky Hampton, who's a former.
You know what? If you tell Mo I said hi. I haven't seen him in a couple of years, but we did a few camps together way back 20 years ago. He's a good dude, but I think he lives in Vegas now.
He does. He lives in Vegas now, and he's absolutely. I've only known him maybe about 3-6 months, but absolutely a great dude so far.
Good
so
dude. Yeah, really
absolutely. I'll get some more inside scoop on him maybe next time we talk.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Coach, for being on. We are the HoopStorians. Y'all take care, and we will be back tomorrow. Until then, we'll see you then.